Welcome back to another episode of Worst of the Wii, the series where I play and rank terrible Wii games to find out which game is truly the worst of the Wii.
Yes, I'm still alive.
Although just barely, because you guys suggested some awful games for me to play. And while I couldn't play every single one for this video, I selected 5 absolutely wretched titles to torture myself with. So we have a kart racer, a rhythm game, a platformer, and 2 minigame compilations. For this video, I'll be looking at these games in order from best or most bearable to the worst. And for this video, I'm gonna try something a bit different. Instead of ranking these games at the end of the video, I'll be adding them to the tier list after each individual review. Just want to see how the pacing goes, so if you like this change or have any other suggestions, please feel free to leave a comment. And if you haven't seen any of these other videos, I'll link a playlist in the description. Anyway, let's get started with the best game you guys suggested for this video. Cocoto Kart Racer is a multi-platform racing game first released in 2005 on the PlayStation 2. It was also released on the GameCube, Windows, GBA, Nintendo DS, and eventually made its way to the Wii in 2008. It's part of the pre-existing Cocoto series developed by Neko Entertainment, who are also the developers behind Charlie's Angels and Crazy Frog Racer. So make of that what you will. The Cocoto series began in 2004 with Cocoto Platform Jumper, which, as that awful name suggests, is a platformer. But basically, you can think of Cocoto as Neko Entertainment's Mario. And since 2004, Cocoto has had multiple spin-offs released all the way up to 2013 on the Wii U. But today, I'm in the mood for a shitty kart racer, so let's see if it can top the likes of Calvin Tucker's Farm Animal Racing Tournament, or heaven forbid, Mythmaker's Super Kart GP. Anyway, let's get started. Connect nunchuck to the Wii remote. Guys, you know what this means, right? No motion controls. Actually get to use the joystick to play this game. That automatically makes this the best game I've played for Worst of the Wii by default. Every single one of these piece of crap games has had motion controls, except for this one. And guess what? The controls are actually pretty solid. Like, it plays like your standard Mario Kart clone, but it feels pretty nice and weighty. I especially love how fast your kart accelerates when falling. Like, there's just this really satisfying sense of gravity just plummeting you towards the ground. My only real complaint about the controls is that there isn't any way to really drift. Like, I've tried pressing every single button on the controller and I'm still forced to take pretty wide turns. Like, there has to be a way to drift, right? Hang on a sec. Huh? Tilt the nunchuck? Oh, we're doing Billy the Wizard now, are we? Neko Entertainment. You guys, you were so close. The controls would have been perfectly fine if drifting was mapped to a button. But no, I need to tilt the nunchuck in the direction I want to drift in. This feels awful and really overcomplicates something that has an obviously simpler solution. And of course, whenever a low-budget Wii game implements motion controls, there's always going to be issues with inaccurate inputs. In the case of this game, you really need to hold the nunchuck still because the slightest movement will force you into a drift. But otherwise, Cocoto Kart Racer is probably the best game I've played for Worst of the Wii. I can tell there was a decent amount of thought put into this game, like how the character selection is split between the heroes and villains. Both sets have a different kart selection, with the heroes' karts having more evenly distributed stat spreads and the villains being more min-maxed. I also kinda love how the hero characters will wave to each other during races. Like, that's a really nice touch. The course design is also alright for the most part. but there are really only 5 of them in the entire game. You do unlock variations, but these just amount to alternate paths being opened on the base tracks, so they really aren't entirely original courses, just slight remixes. Each track does have some pretty neat shortcuts though, and I especially love this one on the lava track because it's easy and satisfying to pull off. I will say though, the beginning of the Heaven course absolutely sucks. Like, look at this section right here. It reminds me of one of those like terrible wild mouse coasters you see at a state fair, but at least the music kinda slaps. Anyway, that's Cocoto Kart Racer. Aside from some annoyances with the nunchuck tilting and a lack of racetrack variety, Cocoto Kart Racer is surprisingly solid. Calvin Tucker was saved by its weird humor, but Cocoto Kart Racer actually has decent gameplay, charming character interactions, and some pretty catchy music. If it was a bit more fleshed out, I wouldn't even call it a shovelware game. Yeah, this game is going into the actually somewhat decent tier. I really don't see it being topped anytime soon. Unless the sequel's any good, so I might just have to check that out for a future episode. Hey, wait a minute. This just looks like the first game. Okay, hang on. Cocoto Kart Racer 2 is just a revision of the first game branded as a sequel. The only difference is support for the Wii wheel, aka tilting the Wii remote to steer, whereas the original release required the nunchuck. So they just released it again, but with more motion controls. I'll just stick with the first game. So this is a real first for Worst of the Wii, a game with actual star power behind it. Yeah, if Major Minor's Majestic March looked somewhat familiar to you, that's because it was led by Masaya Matsura and Rodney Greenblatt, the designer and artist duo that gave the world Parappa the Rapper. You know, the cult classic rhythm game praised by critics for its unique style and catchy music? So Major Minor's Majestic March should have been a hit, right? Well, let me give you a brief rundown of the gameplay. Yeah, that's it. Major Minor's Majestic March is a rhythm game where you need to shake the Wii remote like a conductor's baton. And that's all you do. If you shake faster, the band will play faster. Slow it down a bit and the band will follow. You can also pick up items and recruit more band members by tilting the Wii remote either left or right in time with your rhythm. There's also a band management system. Certain band members will prefer certain tempos. So if you go too fast, some performers will get stressed out and leave. And this doesn't really matter all that much because you're constantly recruiting band members. So as long as your tempo is steady, you should be able to at least finish the level. And I say should, because the game is often unresponsive because of poorly implemented motion controls. Name a more iconic duo than the Wii and bad motion controls. Even if I was trying to slow down or speed up my tempo, I felt like the game struggled to match my pace. It also doesn't help that the entire game consists of one repetitive motion and my arm got tired really quickly. So that killed my tempo half the time. There's also mini games within levels that force you to violently shake the Wii remote, which also doesn't really help with the exhaustion of playing this game. I will say though, this is by far the most charming game I've played for this series. I didn't know anything about this game going into it. I had heard about Major Minor's Majestic March and how bad it was, but I had never actually seen the game in motion. But you know what? I do think the style kinda saves this game a bit. The story follows Major Minor, who wants nothing more than to be a drum major. His friend Tom suggests they start a marching band. So Major Minor grabs his great-great-grandmother Gladiola's sentient baton, which can magically conjure up instruments from thin air. Very convenient. So Major Minor and Tom go on a journey to build the world's best marching band. And their journey sees them traveling across small towns, sporting events, underwater somehow, a dirty warehouse, and a political rally disguised as a New Year's celebration. Would you vote for the nice party? Leave a comment. There's a good variety of levels here, and I can tell that there was a lot of care put into this game. I especially love how after the band members' instruments are stolen by the eggplant fox, they're replaced with random junk that they just find in the trash. And the music even changes to sound like it's being played using stuff found in the garbage. It sounds absolutely terrible, but I love it. Details like these made me actually want to love this game. It's just a shame how awful and unfun the gameplay is. Even so, Major Minor's Majestic March charmed me. If anything, I feel bad for it. I see what the developers are going for, and if the gameplay had more variety and didn't cause me physical pain, I think this could have been a great rhythm game for younger players. While I don't like playing this game, I do like just about everything else, from the aesthetic to the character design, and even the story reminded me of books I would read as a kid. This might be somewhat controversial, but Major Minor's Majestic March belongs in the actually somewhat decent tier, between Calvin Tucker and Cocoto Kart Racer. Family Party 30 Great Games is a 2008 party game published by a D3 publisher and developed by Tamsoft, aka the people behind the Senran Kagura games. Also, yeah, that's just SNES. Okay. I'm gonna be completely honest, I don't have a lot to say about this one. It isn't funny bad in the same way as, well, the next two games, but it does have its fair share of problems. And as you've probably guessed, this one's a minigame collection with 30 great games, although I would hesitate to call any of them great. Most of them feel incredibly clunky, and of course the game has motion sensitivity issues. I swear the barrel throw minigame never read any of my movements correctly, causing me to miss the target like 90% of the time. The game is split into 5 areas, with each containing 5 minigames in addition to an unlockable 6th game. Each area has a different theme. For example, one area is focused entirely on shooting minigames. I actually kinda liked the dotted image one. You need to remember the pattern and then compete with other players to fill it in. Memory games have always been something I've enjoyed in games like Mario Party, so it's really no wonder why I enjoyed this one. But then you have the manhole game, and I have no idea what this has to do with shooting. Why is this here? But I think the main issue with Family Party is how inconsistent the AI is. The CPUs are either incompetent to the point of stupidity or absolutely batshit insane. Let's compare 2 minigames, the bow and arrow and the inner clock. The bow and arrow is a standard shooting gallery minigame where you need to shoot the apples off the bears' heads. Notice how all of the CPU cursors immediately lock onto the targets. My little blue cursor doesn't stand a chance. Now let's look at the inner clock. In this minigame, all you need to do is stop the clock after 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and then 30 seconds without using a timer. But look at how awful the CPUs are. They can react within milliseconds to a target appearing on the screen, but they can't count? They're robots! But yeah, I really don't have much more to say about Family Party. It's just kind of mediocre and doesn't stand out in any meaningful way. It's not even close to being as entertaining as any of the games in the somewhat decent tier, but it is way better than Eminem's Beach Party, so I'll put it at the bottom of the bad and boring tier. I will say though, the menu theme is pretty bangin'. Monkey Mischief is a 2008 party game developed by Evil Gamus and published by everyone's least favorite company, Activision. Fun fact, the monkeys featured in this game would later go on to run the company. It's also the first game in this series that actually crashed my Wii U. Had to hard reset the poor thing, so that's cool. So this game starts with a surprisingly high quality cinematic of the monkeys escaping their prison cells using bananas as a lockpick. Now they're free to wreak havoc throughout the zoo and make the absolute worst noises I've ever heard. And that's my main takeaway from this game. Everything involving audio is unbelievably infuriating. The music actually does not work. Take a listen to the main menu theme. It cuts before the loop is done, and you can just clearly hear it. This isn't an issue with my disc either, because I bought this thing brand new. It was sealed when it arrived in the mail. This is how the game was shipped, and the people making it either didn't care or weren't given the time to care. And it's not just the main menu music either, because sometimes the music in the mini games is broken too. But it doesn't matter because you can barely hear it over the monkeys screaming in your ears every 2 seconds. How the fuck did this pass quality assurance? Now the keyboard is acting up. What is this? Anyway, this is a 4-player Wii Party game, so you probably already know what to expect. You can choose one of the 4 monkeys, but the part that gets me is that they are advertised as each having a unique personality. If you can distinguish these personalities, please leave a comment because I sure can't. They are all the same unhinged maniac that I'm now realizing I'm slowly becoming as I record this section. So yeah, the minigames. There are 4 different locations that contain 5 minigames each, for a total of 20 minigames. Ain't got nothing on Family Party. Some of these minigames need to be unlocked, which is easy enough. Just complete a few minigames to unlock more. The process is actually pretty simple and streamlined compared to other Wii minigame collections I've played for this series. And I was able to unlock everything in well under an hour. Too bad the games themselves are, well, pretty awful and way worse than anything in Family Party. So because they're so bad, let's go over a few of the worst offenders. Rocking and Rolling Monkey has you throwing fruit at a rolling monkey by pointing at the screen with the Wii remote and pressing B to shoot. While it may seem like the target is moving, it actually really isn't because the monkey is almost always centered on the screen. This means that you're basically pointing at the same spot the entire minigame, which takes absolutely no skill. This one really isn't well thought out at all. Salmon Slap. You know I had to talk about this one. But this is probably the best minigame in this collection. It's kinda like bumper balls from Mario Party where you have to knock other players off of the platform. You move with the joystick and shake the Wii remote to Salmon Slap. But the main reason I wanted to talk about this one is because the music sounds a bit, well, yeah, that's definitely someone getting fucked. Harry Houdini actually does not work. You need to press buttons or shake the controller when prompted, and if you mess up enough times, the monkey will fail and literally die. The issue with this game is that the motion controls are both too sensitive and not sensitive enough. Sometimes it'll think you're shaking the controller even when you're not, and that will count as a failed action. And then when you want to actually shake the remote, it will randomly decide to not read the controller input. This is easily the worst game of the bunch. Crowd control.
Time to take a piss.
Yeah, I know it's water, but I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be piss. The higher-ups probably told the developers that a piss minigame would raise the game's age rating, so it was changed to resemble water. There's even a zipper sound effect at the start of the minigame. So yeah, by all accounts, this is a minigame where you piss on other animals. Monkey Masterpiece and Fast on the Draw are literally the same game. They use the same drawing templates and everything. The only difference is that in Fast on the Draw, if you successfully finish the drawing, then you can drop a fruit in your opponent to make them lose points. Definitely feels like they're padding out content with these two games. Flying Monkeys. Only wanted to point out this game because of a weird glitch that happened. I hit an invisible wall and somehow, well, this, and that's Monkey Mischief. Really fucking awful and irritating. The only redeeming aspects are how easy it is to unlock everything, and the music glitches are so blatantly apparent that it's kind of funny. It's better than Redneck Jamboree, mostly because it has more content and respects your time a little more. The quality of minigames is pretty comparable between the two, making Monkey Mischief ever so slightly better than Calvin Tucker's Redneck Jamboree. I fucking hate this game. CID the Dummy is a 2009 3D side-scrolling platformer published by Oxygen Entertainment and developed by 12 Games. Thankfully, after completing CID the Dummy, I am thrilled to report 12 Games has only made 7 games. The story of CID the Dummy follows a sentient crash test dummy named Sid, who is tired of his job and wants more out of life. Professor Verkin, the creator of Sid, notices Sid's dissatisfaction and enlists him on a mission. You see, the professor's daughter Mia was captured by the evil Dr. Detroit. A former friend of Verkin turned villain after a failed experiment fused Detroit with a crash dummy. In order to rescue Mia, Sid must take on Detroit's mechanical army, break into his mansion, and defeat Detroit once and for all. Why does this sound so familiar? Oh yeah, it's basically just Mega Man. So, first of all, and this might just be me, but why are the crash test dummies sentient? Isn't the whole purpose of crash dummies to be, dummies? And the game doesn't even do much with the dummy concept. There's one level where you drive a car and crash it into a wall. And there are some walls you can break through by charging at them, but that's it. Being a crash dummy does nothing for the gameplay or story, and it truly feels like the reason why Sid isn't just a standard robot is to distance the game from Mega Man. Sid even shoots out pellets just like Mega Man. Why is he a dummy? He has a gun! What does this have to do with dummies? Why did he get mad at me for crashing him into a wall? Isn't that the point? Okay, let's take a levity break real quick. The one redeeming factor of Sid the Dummy is that it is absolutely fucking hilarious. The cutscenes are incoherent and look like they came right out of a 90s PS1 game.
Ow! This acid really stings!
And the voice acting is the rotten cherry on top.
Your daughter?
Yes, she has gone missing. Somewhere near the warehouse, I believe.
And you know what? The writing can actually be kind of funny at times, even if it wasn't intentional.
Are you getting forgetful in your old age?
Yes.
Look, for me, he's wasting his time. I have no intention of going back to that boring old place. I won't. I won't. I won't!
I'm sick of your whining. I'm finding it increasingly hard to see why anyone would want to rescue you.
You can even tell they had to re-record some of the voice lines for the Wii version. The audio quality is so drastically different that I could hear it on my TV.
There are 2 surveillance robots guarding this level. Perform attack Wii moves to defeat them.
I didn't even need headphones for this, it's just so obvious. And some of the dialogue overlaps because the devs just didn't give a shit.
Perform super run Wii move while you are running.
And you can really tell the devs didn't care because Sid the Dummy is stuffed to the brim with glitches. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say the devs didn't care, because it could have just been time constraints, it could have just been the higher-ups of the company. Like, I don't want to insult the people who put passion into this game, if there was any. But like, come on. I was killed during a cutscene in the graveyard level. There was a time I couldn't climb up a wall because spikes were shooting out of it. I had to take damage and use my invincibility frames to get past the obstacle. There was one point in this game where it glitched and I couldn't jump. This is a platformer, and I couldn't jump. As for the actual level design and structure, what design? Sid the Dummy is an extremely linear game. Each level is basically one long corridor interspersed with simple platforming segments and enemies. It's as basic as a game like this can be. Levels do have distinct themes, but these themes rarely carry into the actual level design. Yeah, there's more flamethrowers in the volcano level. Yeah, the ice level is slippery. When the levels have unique mechanics, it's very surface level and underdeveloped. But there are a few one-off levels that switch things up. Again, there's the car level, but there's also a flying level with quite possibly the stiffest controls I've ever felt. Your movement is so sluggish here. It felt like I was fighting the controls the whole time. The bosses are their own separate levels, and there are 6 major boss battles in the game. The first boss gave me the most trouble by far. You need to shoot it when it opens its mouth, but a lot of its attacks feel unreactable. It doesn't help that the best way to kill it is to stand right in front of it because the mouth hurt box is tiny. The next boss is this weird swamp monster thing. All you need to do with this one is run back and forth and press the red buttons. The obstacles can be a bit tricky to avoid, and when the boss is at half health, it will start jumping and sending out shockwaves. The aircraft carrier boss is really fucking loud. You need to bait it out so you can shoot its hammer. The annoying thing about this fight is that there are drones shooting at you too. You can kill these drones, but another one will spawn right away, so there's really no point in trying to fight them. The ice cavern boss is just a race through an obstacle course. When you beat it, the boss falls into a lava pit and dies. I actually think I like the lava boss the most though. The first phase has you freezing and punching it, but when it lowers to half health, it starts messing with the arena's terrain. It was also really easy. And then there's the final battle against Detroit, which I will be saving for later. I will say though, the best part about the boss fights is the continually spawning health drops. It definitely makes the fights a whole lot more manageable. And combat really isn't any better. Whenever you want to punch an enemy, you of course need to shake the Wii remote. Luckily, Sid will automatically lock onto enemies, which does alleviate some of the combat clunkiness when fighting 1v1, but Sid is not equipped to fight multiple enemies at once. It really feels like this game encourages fighting at a distance with the pellet gun, which is where the real problems come in. Whenever you want to equip the gun, you need to physically reach the Wii remote over your shoulder and pretend to pull out the gun from your back. Not only does this take way too long to do in the heat of combat, but the motion will almost always activate a physical attack, making the process take even longer. There were many instances where I tried to equip the gun only for Sid to punch himself right off a ledge. The act of shooting also sucks. You have a reticle that can be aimed anywhere on screen, but Sid will only shoot at targets he is facing. Even worse is that the gun only fires in a straight line, meaning you can't even aim it up or down. If you're standing on a ledge above an enemy, you can't shoot down at it. Seriously, what's the point of the reticle if the game doesn't even make use of it? The best attack in Sid's arsenal is definitely the panic mode. Throughout levels, Sid can collect orbs, and by using 10 of these orbs, Sid can activate an attack that will kill any enemy on screen. This is by far the most efficient means for combat in the game. Just try not to overdo it because you can run out of orbs pretty quickly. This brings me to Sid the Dummy's fatal issue, the lives system. In Sid the Dummy, each level will take about 10 to 20 minutes on average to complete. Now, this is already far too long for a platformer, but levels do have checkpoints as long as you have extra lives. But what happens if you don't have extra lives? Well, if you lose all of your lives, you get a game over and need to restart the level from the beginning. But the game only respawns you with 1 life, meaning if you die again, you're back to the beginning of the level even if you activated a checkpoint. Basically, you need to carefully slog through the entire level without access to any of the checkpoints. There are hidden coins you can find that grant you an extra life, but these are limited and do not respawn when you die. There was a point in my playthrough where I was stuck on a level and had only 1 life remaining. I was having so much trouble completing the level that I needed to restart my entire playthrough, and this was about halfway through the game. The best strategy to manage your lives is to play slowly and methodically. The game is insanely punishing, and I found that upon losing a life early in a level, it was better to quit the game without saving just to retain that 1 extra life. This is not how a video game should be played. So after trudging slowly through Sid the Dummy, we finally arrive at Detroit's mansion, ready to take him out. The first phase of the final boss has you shooting really loud laser turrets. It's actually pretty easy, but for some reason there's an invisible wall splitting the battle arena in half. My first instinct during this fight was to run back to put space between me and the turrets, so it was incredibly awkward being stopped by absolutely nothing. Once the lasers are dealt with, a giant robot swoops in. We start by destroying its big spiky balls. But with time, the robot is totally scrapped, and we finally have one last battle with Detroit. Oh, wait, we don't? We don't even get to fight him? Seriously? Detroit just looks at Sid without saying anything, and that's the last we see of him. Well, at least we saved Mia.
Mia is safe and sound, back where she belongs.
I almost decided to leave her there. She's way too demanding for my liking.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Why is Sid such an asshole? I feel kinda bad for rescuing Mia now. She didn't even want to be rescued in the first place. Man, this has to be one of the least satisfying video game endings I've ever experienced. But now it's time to rank this piece of Sid. This one's gonna be hard to decide because there's some really good competition. Right off the bat, I'm not feeling like this deserves a borderline unplayable spot. It's a slog, but it isn't completely broken like Super Kart GP. So it's somewhere in frustratingly terrible. I do think Sid the Dummy is worse than Orbs of Doom. Orbs of Doom wasn't great, but at least it had a little bit of that monkey ball DNA. Eminem's Adventure though, that was such a huge pile of shit and even more low effort than Sid the Dummy, so I think I'm gonna slot Sid the Dummy right in the middle of the frustratingly terrible tier. Sid is really held back by its uninspired, well, everything. The story, level design, combat, everything is far below subpar. The only thing saving this game are the cutscenes and the voice acting. But do not play this game. Just watch the cutscenes online. I'm telling you, it's worth it. Sid the Dummy absolutely crashes and burns, making it the 4th worst game I've played for worst of the Wii. Well, I did it. It was a long time coming, and once again, I'm sorry for the wait. I honestly wasn't planning for it to take this long, but I hope it was worth it. I do plan on continuing this series, so please stick around if you've enjoyed this content. Also, please suggest more bad Wii games for me to play in the comments, and thank you to everyone who suggested the games featured in this video. I really want to push myself to make videos more frequently, but even if it takes a while for videos to come out, I'm always working on something in the background. I don't know what I'm gonna work on next, but I am planning on having a video out next month. I'm feeling pretty comfortable now. Like I recently moved across the country. I have a full-time job. I finished college, so like I have a lot going on right now. But I really just want to build this channel up because like I'm passionate about it. It's just a matter of sitting my ass down and working on stuff and not goofing off. But yeah, I have a lot of ideas, so hopefully I see those through to fruition. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this one. Seriously, thank you all for watching. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for sticking around. I hope you enjoy the things to come.